My channel might be young and just starting out, but if there's one thing that you can tell from looking at some of my past videos is that I'm kind of into these tiny little mini PCs. This little unit here is the Beelink SER5. Now this little machine has quite a lot to offer. With its 5560U Ryzen processor and its integrated Radeon graphics, you can get a lot done, from gaming to general computing and a lot of things in between. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive in and take a look. I'm Garrett, and this is Tech Yeah. If you go back in my channel history just a little bit, you'll see that actually my most successful video to date was the video that I did on the Beelink Mini S. The Beelink Mini S is a little mini PC similar to this one, also made by Beelink, and that one had a quad-core Celeron 5095. Now I did say in that video that there was a slightly more powerful variant in the Celeron 5105. Shortly after that time had passed, I had actually found out that I actually had some Amazon rewards points, quite a few, substantially actually. So when I was browsing through and I saw this Beelink SER5 on sale for $300, it was the perfect candidate for the next Beelink video. This little thing has impressed quite a bit. I really, like the last one, didn't think hooking it up I was gonna enjoy it quite as much as I did, but that certainly wasn't the case, and we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't good. So I did a live stream. I'm not sure when you're gonna be watching this, but for me, I did a live stream last weekend where we plugged this in, we tried a few different games, all of them ran 60 FPS or better. It's just really delightful to see where we're getting with integrated graphics. When it comes to specs, the Beelink SER5 has the Ryzen 5 5560U, 6-core, 12 threads, 16 gigs of DDR4 3200 mega transfers per second, and it also came with a 500 gig Kingston A2000 NVMe drive. If we look at the I/O, around back, we've got two USB 2.0 ports, two HDMI 2.0 ports, the power in, and we also have our gigabit Ethernet port. And now if we flip the device around front, we can see we have two USB 3.0 ports, as well as a USB-C and a 3.5mm audio jack, which is combined, the TRRS. And now that we've looked at the specs and the I/O, let's go ahead and hear from today's video sponsor, Mastermind, and their product, Mapster. Mastermind is a company that specializes in cutting-edge 3D mobile mapping technology. Mastermind's state-of-the-art LiDAR and GIS integration allows county engineers and other professionals to benefit from their revolutionary Mapster viewer. With Mapster, you'll be able to get access to detailed and accurate information in real 3D. The Mapster viewer allows you to visualize your data in 3D, making it easier than ever to identify potential issues and manage your infrastructure. Whether it's managing a natural disaster or simply need to stay on top of the infrastructure in your area, Mastermind LLC's Mapster Viewer is the perfect solution for you. Their technology is easy to use, accurate, and reliable, giving you the information you need to make informed decisions. Plus, Mastermind LLC also has a team of experts that are always on hand to provide support and answer any questions you may have. So if you're looking for the best in 3D mobile mapping technology, look no further than Mastermind LLC. Contact Mastermind LLC today at onlinemapster.com and see for yourself how the Mapster Viewer can benefit your organization. All right, now that we've taken a minute to hear from today's video sponsor, let's go ahead and talk about the performance of this little machine. Now this Beelink SER5, it surprises around every single turn. I ran a multitude of different benchmarks on it when I did a live stream a few weekends back. I like to run a particular set of benchmarks, the first of which is Unigen's Valley benchmark. Now, despite the machine only running at a maximum of 9 FPS during the Unigen Valley benchmark, it still ran. So this ended up being the most unimpressive score of the bunch at 401. I'll have to leave that up to the viewer of what they think of whether or not that's a good or a bad score. As we test more of these machines into the future, I expect this number to go up. The next candidate in our suite of tests was TimeSpy. Now, TimeSpy is limited by the graphics on this chip. The SER5 does have the previous generation Vega-based graphics, whereas if you opt for the newer SER6 model, whereas you're going to be paying double, about $600, you're getting the new 680M RDNA2 based graphics. Now, 3D Mark TimeSpy, we got an overall score of 1106. Again, we were being held back by the graphics score of 975. But our CPU score, we got a pretty good 4735. After 3D Mark TimeSpy, we have Geekbench. Geekbench gave us a single core score of 1323, followed up with a multi-core score of 6076. If we compare this to an i9 13900K, for instance, on that chip, fully maxed out, we're looking at about 2800 on the single core and about 20,000 on the multi-core without any overclocking. So not a 13900K, but still very good for only $300. All right, folks, up last in my bag of benchmarking tricks is actually the WebGL Aquarium benchmark. This might seem a little different for most of the benchmarks you're gonna see on YouTube, and I like to include this in my suite of tests, especially when we're testing anything with integrated graphics. The reason for this being, especially if you frequent places like itch.io and you're checking out new Unity games and stuff like that, and you might not have the most powerful GPU, but you still play a lot of these games, it's something to check out. So something to note here, we kept at a solid 60 FPS until we went up to about 25,000 fish, and then we started seeing dips below 60. That doesn't give you a lot of context at this moment, but here in a few weeks when we test the Beelink SER5, we'll be able to better show you the improvement in the hardware capabilities. One thing to note, maybe a little bit of an honorable mention or a dishonorable mention, was actually the internet test that I performed on this little unit, just as a little thing to check out. I only have the results here for the test that I pulled over Wi-Fi. Now, I do have a 1 gig fiber up and down here at the workshop, so this isn't a very good showing for Wi-Fi speed. I wish I had the footage to show you guys from the Ethernet test, but the Ethernet test, I pretty much got a solid 600 up and down, and that's direct to the internet. So if you're gonna use this little machine for anything like what I use it for, or like running a stream or doing anything like that, I strongly recommend using the hardline Ethernet. And last but not least, if you've been hanging on till the end of the video, I appreciate you. It's a little bit of gaming performance for this little thing. As mentioned before, it does have an iGPU, but lucky for us, this is an AMD-based iGPU. So the AMD iGPUs have just a little bit more oomph behind the iGPU, and they've been shown to run better in games. They have smoother frame times compared to something like the Intel UHD or Xe graphics on an Intel chip. First up here though, and I did live stream these games, is World of Warcraft.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that 90 FPS on this $300 machine.
I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but there are several million people that play this game, and there is a reason for that. And this game has already incorporated upscalers in it for several years now. Seeming as how this game was released in 2004, so it should be able to run reasonably on any hardware. But they have pushed it with the upscalers in recent years, and this year's release of their Dragonflight expansion has brought a number of different graphical updates, as well as people back to the game and UI changes. So I just wanted to test this out, and I was pleasantly surprised. We started off somewhere with a frame rate in the high to mid 70s, and after tweaking a few settings around and getting it right to where I wanted it, I was actually able to get around 114-ish FPS, about 100 average, which is fantastic on an iGPU system. And next up, just so I could get a bunch of action going on the screen and really kind of test these graphics out and stretch its legs a little bit, I tried out Black Desert. Now, if you'll notice, most of the titles that I'm going to test on this channel, at least starting out, are going to be a lot of MMOs. For Warcraft, we're lucky I have a subscription for, but other games I have to kind of just take what's available out there. But Black Desert is already known to push hardware, and this was no different. We started off with a frame rate around 35 FPS. Now, in Black Desert, I was actually able to enable AMD FSR. That was able to get us at a locked 60 FPS. The problem with that, though, is the game looked like complete. Lucky for us, Black Desert has their own upscaler included in there. The problem with AMD FSR and other technologies like it, like DLSS, they require you to actually set the graphics settings to high or ultra. They have to be at those settings for it to render the game even at a lower resolution. And the trouble with that is it is still more taxing on your hardware, especially if you have an iGPU. So what I found with this game was actually better to turn it down to low settings and enable the upscaler, and I was actually able to get a locked 60 FPS, and the game was actually a pretty enjoyable experience, even if it did look like a horrible blocky mess of polygons. And that pretty much does it for this little Beelink device here. Each one of these I test, obviously it was nicer than the one that came before it, and that obviously can only go up to a certain point, right? There's only so many. But this machine and the $300 price point, especially that price point, that market is heating up quite a bit. And devices like this is what we get out of that because of the competition. And that's a great thing. I'm super happy with this. If you order one, you will be as well. Thank you for checking out the video. See you in the next one. Now, in Black Desert, I actually was able to enable the, and that was able to get us at the frame rate, and we were so they have a little bit more smoother frame. Honk. The last benchmark in the this may not be important for every. Next up in our